Let's talk about that right now with our panel. News Nation contributor Denise Gitsham joining us, Republican who ran for Congress out in California. Democratic strategist Naveen Nayak is along today as well. And I want to focus on this, the Pritzker back and forth, okay? It's personal between the president and the governor of Illinois, and then there's going to be a legal fight about whether the president can send the guard into Illinois as he's done in D.C. So I mentioned this to Geraldo last hour. Let's start with the personal. So Trump went after him early, then Pritzker had his news conference later. One of the things he said, I still can't believe this, is that Pritzker should think about hitting the gym. Okay, but then it went downhill from there. But here's the president earlier.
In a certain way, you really want to be asked to go. You know, I hate to barge in on a city and then be treated horribly by corrupt politicians and bad politicians like a guy like Pritzker. He ought to spend more time in the gym, actually. This guy is a disaster. Gavin Newsom's a disaster.
Okay. Now, Denise, if you want to start us off on this one, the gym thing for a second, but the idea of being asked to go, he's talking about sending the guard in, and Pritzker was clear. We had him live. We'll play a clip in a moment. He doesn't want them there. How does this all play out?
Well, let's skip the gym thing for sure, because we're all rolling our eyes. This is classic Trump. He's trying to get a rise out of him, and apparently he did in a different way. But, you know, Chicago averages 78 violent crimes per day, and that's one every 18.5 minutes. And I guarantee you that the billionaire governor, Pritzker, is not living in places or dealing with the impact of that on the daily basis. In fact, aggregated assaults reached a 20-year high in 2024 in Chicago. So while the places that he was filming, the things he posted on Instagram about how beautiful his walk was in the morning, listen, he's not going to those places like, I think it's West Garfield Park, Inglewood, where crime is 4 times the national average, and a black male is more likely to be shot there than any war zone in Iraq or Afghanistan. So what's normal for him isn't normal for a lot of other Chicagoans, and that's why you're hearing a lot of them say, hey, we would love to have someone come in and restore order.
No, the governor's certainly not the one saying that. In fact, last hour we covered part of this live, and here's what he said. This is J.B. Pritzker about an hour ago.
Yeah.
If it sounds to you like I am alarmist, that is because I am ringing an alarm, one that I hope every person listening will heed, both here in Illinois and across the country. What President Trump is doing is unprecedented and unwarranted. It is illegal. It is unconstitutional. It is un-American.
Un-American, he says. Naveen?
I mean, I don't know. We're running out of adjectives to describe what's happening. This is deploying the National Guard against the American people. And if President Trump, I mean, I'm amazed that Denise can pretend like there's actually a role here in addressing crime. That's absurd. There are so many more cities in America. Little Rock is a cesspool of violence, and the president will never send the National Guard there because they're Republican. This president is doing this for 2 reasons. One, to pit Americans against each other and to divide this country further, and that's why he's only picking so-called blue cities. And 2, he is a wannabe dictator who is looking for more control over things that are, in theory, outside of his disposal.
On the dictator,
it's a pretty terrifying moment.
It's interesting that you say that on the dictator thing, Trump kind of anticipated comments from, you know, the other side like that, and said this today about the fact that whether he's a dictator. This was Trump.
They say, we don't need him, freedom, freedom. He's a dictator. He's a dictator. A lot of people are saying maybe we like a dictator. I don't like a dictator. I'm not a dictator. I'm a man with great common sense, and I'm a smart person. And when I see what's happening to our cities, and then you send in troops, instead of being praised, they're saying you're trying to take over the republic. These people are sick.
All right, Denise, pick up on that and respond to what Naveen is saying, that this is not about crime at the end of the day. It's more about politics.
Well, yeah, I mean, today at the summer meeting for the DNC, they acknowledged that the Democratic National Chair Committee chaired Ken Martin acknowledged that Dems continue to lose ground with voters. Between 2020 and 2024, Dems lost ground in 30 states where voter registration is actually tracked, and Republicans are gaining by a 4.5 million voter margin. They've got 14 million in the bank compared to 89 in the RNC, and only 23% of their own party. 23% of Democrats have a favorable view of their party. And the reason is because of comments like Naveed's. Look, the same talking points. How long have we heard these same talking points about Donald Trump? Over and over, they
What,
side
and you're talking about saying Trump's a dictator? Is that what you mean?
yeah, I mean, these are old. Why are Democrats continuously siding with criminals? Look, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you're not going to have to worry about the National Guard. In fact, you're going to welcome them into these places. Again, this is a civil rights issue at the end of the day. If black men are being killed in some of these neighborhoods, why is this not a civil rights issue that you should be on the right side of? You should be protecting them, not throwing them to violent criminals. It's horrific what's happening in these neighborhoods.
As you respond to that, Naveen, I would say this. I think that what Trump does pick up on is this public sentiment, because when Democrats push back with, oh, it's down percentage-wise, he can still look at raw numbers that are, a lot of people would just say are too high, and he picks up on the emotion of it. He picks up on the emotion of it and sees it to his political advantage, in my view, at least on this issue. But pick up on what Denise is saying.
Donald, it's absurd. You telling me that Muriel Bowser does not want to reduce crime? She's a moderate Democrat who, from the start, has made that a priority in this city, and crime has gone down dramatically.
Yeah, it was funny. Trump gives her some credit. He said something like, "Oh, she's better than most," or something like that today.
Donald Trump could have had a partner in Muriel Bowser if he was at all serious. If this was an actual effort to reduce crime.
Right.
It is not. Denise has made it clear this is politics. She sees a weakness in the Democratic brand, which it does exist, and so she's cheering on the restrictions of our freedoms, the use of the military in American cities. That is fascist. That is anti-freedom. There's no question
Naveed loves to get
that is
personal,
not
and
a freedomist
I
thing.
want to talk about facts. The reality is I live in D.C. as well, part-time, and I know what happens in Wards 7 and 8, where 90% of the population is African-American, and 1 in 50 residents is a victim of violent crime in those areas. So if you don't know what's actually happening in your city, you can talk all you want from your pretty little spot in Northwest where you're safe. Listen, President Trump doesn't live in those areas, but for once, he actually cares about the safety of the people living in this District of Columbia, and he actually wants to do something about it. And that's why you're seeing the police unions and you're seeing the residents of this area say thank you. It's the Democratic politicians who have everything to lose for what they have failed to do.
I hear what you're saying about the Democratic brand being damaged, but I do think, let me stick with Denise for 1 minute and then Naveen come back in. That is a part of this, right? The politics of it. I mean, think about the other issue you brought up today, flag burning, another issue where people are going to say, yeah, that shouldn't happen, and they're not going to get into the legal back and forth. But again, Trump knows how to take advantage of these issues, was my earlier point. Denise, and he seemed like he was like a home game for him today, and it may be, and also maybe distract to some extent from other issues that he doesn't want to talk about as much.
Again, politics. I mean, absolutely, he's out politicking everybody. Nobody can beat him. And Democrats cheer when Gavin Newsom gives back to Trump what Trump started. Look, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. If the best Gavin Newsom can do and other Democrats do is imitate what Donald Trump has done, more power to him.
Well, I'm not
still
sure
not winning
that's
again.
imitation as much as I think that maybe more mockery than imitation, but whether it plays off well.
Maybe come up with something new that other people want to imitate. Whatever you want to call it.
The joke.
Democrats are losing. Democrats are losing.
Well, all right, so let's pick up on that point then, Naveen. Democrats are losing. There is something to that. Democrats are losing.
Connell, this is the key point I wish we could all agree on. Americans are losing. Okay? Absolutely, there are huge parts of America that have really violent crime issues that we should be addressing. That should be a priority for Democrats and Republicans, and I promise you, Democrats would be eager for a partner at the federal government to address that. That is not what Donald Trump is doing.
No, what Pritzker
There's
said.
no part of Donald Trump that is actually, he is trying to divide Americans and weaken Democrats. And that's a political ploy. That is not actually trying to solve problems in America. And as a result, we are giving up core freedoms. I am sure Denise would not be comfortable with this in red states. And why, I don't know why she's
I would love it in the red states. Oh, I'd be so happy. And you know what? Red state governors would welcome them.
Have you seen a single red state governor raise their hand? I have not seen one red state governor raise their hand asking for
on the crime issue, I don't know. We had a headline today where Brian Kemp in Georgia was deploying the Guard to help ICE. So they're going to be more on the ICE on immigration,
for law and order,
as opposed to cracking down on crime directly. All right, I got to run anyway. Denise and Naveen, it's always great to have both of you on from opposing viewpoints, but talking through an important issue.